afternoon, everyone. My name is Kern. I guess I'm abroad, I have to introduce myself properly. I'm Kern Nightingale. I work for Sitecore UK, doing technical things. I've had a great day so far here, and I hope that you're enjoying it as well. I think it's a great effort that the Dutch user group has put on here, and I'm a little bit envious that you have such community drive. I'd love to see some of that in the UK. So I've promised to come here and speak to you about some search stuff. I can see in the program that there's good competition. We've got developing solutions with compiled domain model and MVC over in the big room. Who cares? There's Sitecore commerce integration with OBEC. It's probably only relevant if you are building an e-commerce solution. Again, also sounds boring. So who's here to get rich? In a hurry. Okay, well, so this was my icebreaker. I do a lot of these user group presentations in the UK because of this lack of community drive. But yeah, so I thought I would see if I could lure people here with, well, not quite empty promises, but I think I'll do one other trick. I'll do the get rich part at the end. So you sit here in suspense and listen to me talking about Sitecore search. So we've already had some great presentations today about search. And I've also done some in the UK, and you can find some of my previous presentations on YouTube. So Sitecore UK has a YouTube channel. Does anyone go on YouTube and watch Sitecore stuff, or just Funny Cats? Together with Mike's Funny Cat channel. I'll better get on. We've already spent 5 minutes just talking, and it's easy to run over, but luckily I have a short presentation, so it's not going to be that bad. So let's just need to focus here. This is what it said in the session overview. We're going to talk about Sitecore 7 content search API. And I'm not going to bother with the very basics. I hope that you've already sort of plunged into it and started doing some things. But we're going to look at an example, and when we've gone through this little worked example, we'll look at some off-piste stuff, and in the end we'll do some tips and tricks. Right. So in my example, I thought, I need to do something with search, and I thought, I need some data. So it's no use doing something with content search if you have, 10 items. Who cares? You could do all that with Sitecore as it was in Sitecore 6. So I took some items of DBpedia, which is a Wikipedia feed, and imported into Sitecore. And then I did sort of a search page with the usual stuff, sort of the stuff that you would normally implement. I did this example to sort of try and challenge some of the problems that I've heard from partners and other developers. So this is, I guess, what a search page could look like. So we have an input field, we get some results out, we may have a sort of paging and faceting. I didn't put on sorting. That probably should have been in there, but this will do for the illustration. And if I was to go and do this, I could have different approaches. And one approach could, of course, be, go and do a single component in Sitecore. It's nice and easy. Has anyone done this sort of recently? Yeah, you built one of these. Did you do this? One big component, everything in there? You did something else. Did you do something like this? Yes. So that's also my thought, that break it down a bit so you can have a bit more flexibility, and that comes with a challenge. And of course, the challenge is that now we've got data all over the page, different components, and they all have a dependency on the same sort of data. And I guess the dumb thing is to just have every component do the same thing. Go and do a search. And we looked at different ways of doing it. So I had some discussions in the office, and we talked about what you could do. I'll be interested to hear what your solution was. So the options that I saw was you could do the search centrally, do it in advance. So put it in the pipeline, and then the data is available for the components when they are on the page. You could, if you're doing MVC, you could create your own item controller. Am I getting warmer? Or, no, nothing like that. Okay. Perhaps you did the same thing as I did, because I went with another approach. Of course, I created a search service. If you attended some of the, I think it was both Alex and Ruud, they were talking about sort of how to move your logic into components where you have good separation of concerns. And together with my search service, I did a decorator. So we're getting into pattern land. I know that Ruud was talking about IOC and all sorts of fancy stuff. I've also gone to Wikipedia and just copied and pasted in their description of what it was. But instead of trying to come up with my explanation to back it up, I just highlighted the words that you need to read to understand what a decorator pattern does. So basically, it's a wrapper. In this case, it's a wrapper. I'm sure there are other sort of implementation details that you could go with. But essentially, I'll put in front of my service a mechanism that will do some caching for us. So here's an example. Can you see that it's a bit too dark? You can see that? Okay. So we have a very dumb interface at the top. It's a search service, and I think I would advocate when you're doing this, don't try to create your own generic Sitecore search service. Sitecore's already done a generic thing for you, so just use that and then create your specialized services against it. Here I have my search service, and then I have my decorator. So my caching search service decorator is my entry point. So now I could have all my components request a service, in this case the decorator, and it'll offload in the case it needs to. So here I think I cheated. I just put in, it's a cache. The cache could be Sitecore context items or something like that, or something more clever. It'll also allow you to control the lifetime of a cached result. Of course, in this here you can see that it relies on being able to have a cache key that is unique to the criteria. So you can see there's some stuff going on here where it's generating that. Yeah, so just calling out, of course, the concrete service, which is the one we're offloading to if we can't find it in the cache, and then, of course, populating cache if we need to. So that way, all of my components can do the dumb thing. They can just say, Mr. Service, give me some search results, and then the decorator will make sure that you only do the call once. So this is not something that's unique to search. You can use it for many things where you have a cross-component dependency. So I think there is a benefit to doing it like this compared to doing it up front. This is the approach that you took? Sort of. Okay. So because I'm a bit simple, so my first idea was, I'll put it in the HTTP request pipeline, and then I'll just, if there's parameters that looks like a search criteria, I'll build up something. But if I do it like that, then there's a disconnect between my components and the service. The service will provide something in the pipeline and hope that it's what the components want. And the components, they will hope that the pipeline did the right thing for them, but they can't be guaranteed that it happened. So I think this one has sort of the best, I guess, way of pros and cons, because I haven't found any cons yet. Anyone? Good. So just reminding myself where we are. We're probably going to the next slide. Okay, so we're moving closer into the search. I don't know if you can see we're sort of peeling off the onion here. First we had some UI, then I went through the decorator, and now we actually ended up in the service. It's full of stuff here. And I guess this is very specialized. It works on a specific type of criteria. So I haven't tried to make so the all-encompassing generic Sitecore thing that I can then specialize on. I think it's a waste of time. I used to do that, but I guess that was in the time when Sitecore didn't have a sort of very well-abstracted search API that we have now. So some things in here that may be interesting. I'll put a little note down here. If you search on YouTube for searching with Sitecore 7, you'll get all the basics by yours truly. Video recorded like that from a pizza bar in London last year. It was good fun. So I'm not going to bother you with all of the low-level details. I will call out some of the more advanced things that are going on here. So you can see I'm doing something with an expression of a func, of a social. This is a little bit complex, but in normal sort of simple search scenarios, you would have a queryable, and you would use a where statement to query it. You might add filters on there. So just to repeat something that I've said many times, the difference between a where and a filter is, of course, that a filter doesn't carry any weight. So when the scoring happens of the results, a filter will only remove things. It won't change the weighting of the. So hope that makes sense. Back to the story we were telling here. You can see I'm doing the normal where thing down here, but I'm handing it a predicate. So the things I would normally set up inside my lambda, I've moved it out once. And the reason that it's interesting using the predicate builder here is because I can easily add flow control around it. So if I was to do flow control with my where statement, it can still be done on an iQueryable, but it's a bit easier with the predicate builder because you have and or not create true false. There may be some other ones on there, but these are the ones that you probably want to be using, which makes it easy to build up your query. So you could imagine that you say, if the criteria has a text string called Kern, then I want to apply something in the filtering. So I can put ifs and I guess for each and these sort of things around the way that I build up my ands and ors. So I'll try to do a little comparison down here at the bottom. And you can see here it looks like the predicate builder. It's a lot more code in the way that it's written out here. Why wouldn't I just do the thing down here? But imagine that you have many different criteria that you need to add on there. And you have conditions, excuse me. Then it becomes handy working with the predicate builder. We'll cut that out. So, the second thing I wanted to call out was faceting and pivot faceting. Can I have a beer? I'm sorry, I need to have some water here. So, do all of you know what faceting is? You may have heard it mentioned as being parametric search. Basically, when we add a facet on a query, we'll, in our result set, be able to get something that I've called it a prediction. It'll give you an indication of if you were to filter on a specific field, it'll tell you for each of the possible values how many documents you'd get back. It's very nice. You've all seen in Amazon, when you're on there buying CDs, you may go into the rock category, and you can see for each of the subcategories, boy bands, 5 CDs, so on and so on. So you have an idea when you're navigating, how many results can I expect when I go down this extra level? So that brings us on to a pivot facet. Any ideas in the room? Have any of you had to use that in a project? You have? Let's hear it.
I was writing a pivot facet.
Okay, it's very relevant, Stephen. So I'll give you an idea of what a pivot facet is. I think it's a silly name, and the descriptions that you find out on the internet are also, they come in different guises, but the way I see a pivot facet is that it's, I put up here a decision tree. It's actually just sort of nested facets. That's the easiest way to think of it. So you can get predictions on multiple levels. So actually discussing with Stephen today whether is it a decision tree or is it a matrix. So when you look at actually the results you get back from Sitecore, you get you get some strings that have multiple values for the full pivot facet. So if you have multiple facets combined in one pivot facet, you can see you'll get different values, and you get combinations of values, and you can do your predictions based on that. I think the code for from the search API is a little bit tricky to work with because it does come out as strings, and that I'm very sorry about that. It can be hard to work with because you have to do the string manipulation yourself. I've never had it this bad before. You'll do one more glass of water. Someone help me if I drown. And I wasn't even boozing with Mike yesterday, so... we've come to my favorite part of piste. So, I've for a while been hacking away at the search API, trying to do the impossible. And one of the things that it really annoyed me from the word go was that some of the features that we have in Solar and Lucene wasn't included. I think it's just a very short extra distance we should have gone to get them in there. So I set about on a one-man mission to implement the spatial search, which is, I think, the feature that I'm missing from the search API at the moment. And I guess we should just start by talking about what is spatial search. Are you all, does anyone want an explanation of that? Yes? I'll do it for you and for the camera, of course. So, spatial search, in the simplest terms, is being able to query something by its, for instance, geo coordinates. I guess it could also be in 3D space, but as a practical matter, if you, for instance, have a real estate site, you often want to be able to say, give me all the houses in the vicinity of X, or something like that. So, and it could be anything. It doesn't have to be real estate. It could be events or anything that has something, this user group thing in Utrecht. Which is also why I pumped in all of these places from Wikipedia, so I had something to work with, something to play with. The moving parts of my implementation of this, I tried to do it as simple as possible. I used computed fields for generating something called geohashes. And basically, a geohash is, imagine that you have a big map of the Earth, and you then start dividing it into squares, giving them a label. So for the biggest squares, we call them A to Z, for instance. And then each of the squares we divide into more little squares and call them A to Z, and so on and so on and so on. So every time we add one letter to our geohash string, we get even better resolution on the location of what we're looking for. In the LuceneNet contrib spatial, we have all the tools we need to do this. So that's the one half. That is, how do we get coordinates into Lucene into a format that we can actually query and find out where things are. Sorry about that. So, the second thing I did was I think I started out trying to see how can I make this part of the link query part, and I couldn't. It's impossible. I've tried again. I've tried the third time, and I'm defeated on that one. So I did something else. I tried to be pragmatic about it. So how can I implement the feature? Perhaps not in the way that look the coolest, but in the way that works. And that's my last point. There's a little crying smiley down there. That didn't happen for me. So, if you remember the sort of the search method we had before, where it does all the usual things, grabs an index, and then I cast it to a spatial Lucene index, which is my invention. I came up with that. I do the same for the when I create the context. And that gives me access to a set geofilter. So that's a method that exists on a spatial Lucene search context, which allows me to, specify I only want results within this area. So in the ideal world, I'd put it on the queryable. In this case, I put it on the search context. I do think that the best practice is to, and you'll have to verify this, Stephen, to have one search context per query. Yeah. So you're not losing out on anything here. Just syntax-wise, it would have been a little bit sweeter if it had sat on the queryable. Oh, yes. And optimistically, I've written, see the user group SUGCON repo on GitHub. I promise you it will be up there. So I have all the code. But late in the night, last night, I capitulated on actually getting it up there. Just need to do one last swing of the Hoover, and then I'll release the code for you guys. So it should be there by this time tomorrow. And of course, this code is provided as is, and I won't be responsible if you find results that are outside the filter. And one known issue here is that the spatial filters are not applied to the facets. I have also done this as a POC with a partner where we use Solar as the backend. And in that case, we did actually have the geospatial filters applying to both the query and the facets. And it may seem strange that it's handled sort of separately, but that's just how it works in the belly of the beast. And I'll be happy if there's demand. I will put out the Solar version as well. Of course, demand would be demonstrated in, watching the repo, forking it, those sort of things. So community interaction. See, we can do this. So that brings us to the third part of. Oh, actually, no, it doesn't. Let's just go back here. So I know that I've cheated. I didn't want to go completely off piste like Mike. And have all sorts of technical mountains to climb. So that's why all my code is just in the slides. I've tried to minimize the number of demos. So if you ever attended one of the London user groups where I talk, they normally last, well, my talk is an hour and a half. Most of the time I'm faffing around the Visual Studio and cracking jokes, but I won't do that to you today. But I will show you my naughty little example here. So that's the page that we saw a screenshot of before. And at the moment, we're not really. Oh, what's the mouse? We're not finding anything. But we could go in here and say, oh, I hope that the internet is working again. We'll do this. Whoop. Mike, you broke the internet. How could you? Drum roll, come on. Yes, where's my jacket? I should be swinging it over my head. Right, so the reason that I actually need some internet here, and this is, I guess, the big fail. If I can give you one piece of advice, if you are aspiring to do a user group talk, don't rely on the internet. The internet is usually not there when you do a user group talk. In London, for a long time, we went to this pizza express place. It's actually in a basement under this pizza restaurant. It's like a Faraday cage. There's nothing there. So let's see, and to be honest, the Color Kitchen's Wi-Fi is a little bit the same. We'll see if we can, oh, come on. Boom. See, this was all working until Mike just had to borrow the machine. I blame it on Mike. No beers. Don't think we can do it without. See, can you see this little thing saying map? That's not there. That's Google Maps, not loading. Does anyone have a phone with Wi-Fi? Yeah. Will someone tell something interesting, an experience you've had with Sitecore search? Any volunteers? Has anyone of you all sort of were, yeah? What was your solution with regards to sort of multiple components wanting the same search result?
So, to be honest, I work from Shibanemo, from the Autohouse project.
Yeah.
So, I used the downtown controllers to have some kind of services.
Did he, I can't remember the details of Autohouse, did he do that as a REST service?
It's just an outdated service.
Okay, so he doesn't contact like a REST thing?
No, so the iQuery will generate is plugged into the outdated.
Okay.
And that then
I don't understand how that changes the scenario for having multiple components.
It's because it's then exposed as a kind of data service that then if you want to use bindable JavaScript things, you can talk to the service.
Okay, we will not see the search scenario. That's actually a big shame because that was sort of also the way we were supposed to earn some money together. Don't run yet. There's more. We'll have a look at the tips and tricks. So one thing that I haven't been using a lot, but I will in the future, is something called LinkPad. That's brilliant. I don't know how I could completely have overlooked how useful this tool is. And it really only came to my attention after I saw some blog posts on it on the Sitecore community blogs. Where you can actually hook in, you can see here, this is a connection to your indexes in your on your Sitecore instance, and you can test out your queries in the way you would do it normally. So you can write your link queries. Is it a bit small? You can see you're squinting there. You can write your link queries as you would have normally, and see what sort of results that you get, rather than having to go through the process of writing the query, deploying the code, pressing F5, having no joy, going back, starting over, which is the way I work. Another thing that you actually could do on that subject of sort of trial and error, you could do something a little bit more sophisticated. I came across a GitHub repo by Mr. Pope, which sort of demonstrates unit testing of something that has a dependency on an iQueryable. So that's, I think, something that you guys would find handy. Are you all TDD sort of? In your mind, you only do test-driven development? Of course, that's one. Well, do you do any testing? So any sort of quality assurance on your projects? That's also hitting F5, no joy, back to start. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's something that we need all to be better at. I mean, I'm not excluding myself from that at all. The only way that we can drive the quality of the solutions that we provide is by paying more attention to the process of delivering the software and making sure that we actually have some quality assurance metrics. Without that, we're just, at the mercy of the gods. So, another little thing that I came across that I thought this would be handy, because this was an annoyance. Every time I created a computed field, even if I did something called hasvalue. So does a field have a textual representation? So I can ask in my index, give me all the fields that have a value, give me all the fields that doesn't have a value. But I found myself writing one of these hasvalue for each of the names because I hadn't got a way to feed in the name of the field that I wanted to test for. This little snippet here, it's not a beauty, but it's a snippet, shows you how to get around that problem. Basically, you can feed in an XML node, which is the config node that you have defined, and then you can rip off the attributes that you need. I did consider doing something more generic, but as the solution is already mapping some attributes, and I had no idea which ones, I thought this was the halfway house that everyone would be happy with. Well, that I was happy with anyway. And you can see there's still more adverts running here at the bottom for this elusive user group SUGCON repo. It will be on there on my GitHub account shortly. So this tip here, as I told you, I imported 400K items into Sitecore. That was a 3 gig JSON file, which poses some challenges in itself. But one tip here, I don't know if you can see this, it says false here and true there. But basically turn off indexing and turn off events whilst doing this sort of heavy lifting. So you can partition up your work. The indexing and events of course has a performance penalty, and they should be there for business as usual. But when doing these big data shifts, turn it off, and you can always re-index later. That'll save you some time. And well, I think this brings us to the last slide. I'm really upset that we couldn't see geospatial, because that was the coolest thing. Second? No, we didn't get rich. That was actually part of it, so we won't get that. I'll just have to come back and do another one. How to get rich next year. So thanks for listening. I'll put my Twitter handle on there, and I would love if you would give me some feedback. Yeah, it's been great talking to you guys, and I hope that you've enjoyed it, even though my example isn't here. And also, if you write to me on Twitter, I'll inform you when the GitHub repo is available. See, an incentive. See, give and take. So, thank you to our sponsors, and thanks to you for listening to me.